Hey guys, what's going on? Today we're doing a little bit different of a video, and this is going to be more so long form, and it's not going to really pertain to firearms, but it is going to pertain to medicine just a bit. Now, for those of you who have been following for a while, I've been an EMT for roughly 5 years total, and actually working as an EMT, and over the last decade I've been certified per Indiana standards, is what it says on their government website. Or on a CADIS portal for a decade. So I decided I want to become a paramedic, and despite setbacks earlier this year, I decided this pretty quickly, and I am absolutely 100% all in for this. Now we're going to get set up and start to go over what we're going to be covering for pharmacology, and what we're going to be doing is I'm going to get some paperwork out here. We're going to be hopping into one of my favorite study tools, and that is Notion, Notion.so. It's just basically software. And I have all of these drugs that we're going to be going over and inputting into like a study spreadsheet of sorts. We're going to classify it in a few different ways based on medical condition, based on mechanism of action, based on different protocols and what it would be used for, and all that. We're just going to try and do this in so many different ways, and it's going to take a minute because I'm going to go through probably the first page of these drugs, which there are 1, 2, 3, 28, 29, 30. Just on this first page. I'm probably not going to go through, after looking at that, every single drug, but what we will be covering is the same information that I would cover for my drug cards if I were working on those right now. And that it's trade and generic names, mechanism of action, or MOA, indications, contraindications, which are reasons why you wouldn't give a medication. A common example is if somebody has taken Viagra, which is a vasodilator, you're not going to also give nitroglycerin, which is also a vasodilator. You're going to tank their blood pressure. Or if somebody's allergic to it, or they've already gotten a dose within X amount of time. Just simple things that you want to take into account when giving medications. Side effects of the medications, dose and routes of administration. And then in here, what I'm going to do, let's hop into pharmacology here. And this is actually, I'm going to show you how I have my final exam review question set up. So this was all green. I don't know what happened. All of this was green. I felt pretty confident about it, but I'm going to decide to go back through that at a later date as soon as I get some time and fill all that out once again and do some active recall. But the reason why I am doing it this way is because, one, it has a lot of benefit. I use spaced repetition, and there's another process that Ali Abdal on YouTube. I'll actually pull up his YouTube channel here real quick for you guys to see. If you guys are medical students, med students, PA, paramedic, nurse, I am a big believer in following the research and figuring out what works best for you, and accounting for new things that are coming out when it comes to medicine or studying or education, and trying to find, Ali Abdal, active recall, and spaced repetition. So active recall, this is Ali. He was a doctor at Cambridge University. I think that's in London or somewhere in England. I'm not entirely sure. It's an Ivy League school, I know that. But he's got 4.72 million subscribers. He makes really great content, and this is probably one of his most watched videos. 1.6 million views. And Study With Me, active recall tips. I'm probably going to watch that one later again. I'm going to save education and training. Boom. But let's get back into the active recall question. So active recall is meant to work on the long term. So I'm sure that we've all crammed for a test at one point in time. It's a pretty common thing if you're in college, high school, middle school, whatever school you're in, whatever secondary or tertiary college or whatever. We've all done it, and it sucks because you're not confident that you retain the knowledge, and I don't retain well, especially when it comes to short-term studying. So I was trying to find a way to make studying a little bit more fun and more engaging and make it more like a game. And that's when I discovered Ali. And it changed a lot of different things. Like right now, my grades in my anatomy class are 89. My paramedic class, I've had a couple crap grades. But the active recall questions are basically you try to remember as much as you can. If you don't remember everything, that's fine. Then you write down what you remember, or you just jot down or whatever you want to do with that information. You move on to a new question, or if you're focusing on one large subject, like the process of making urine. I'm going to be doing a lot of active recall with that process in anatomy, more so recently because we're covering that, and that is ridiculously in depth. I don't care much for the urinary system. What if I ever go into medicine to become a doctor, I'm probably not going to do a specialty in urology. It's just not very fun for me. And then for that stuff that you do remember, good on you. If you don't remember much, that's okay, because at least that part's in your mind. And when you go after the active recall portion, you're going to go back and review some of the other stuff, like a sentence or two more, or review the whole topic. And then you're going to wait a little bit, maybe a day or two, maybe a couple hours, maybe a few minutes, take a break, walk around, and you're going to come back and do it again. And if you remember more stuff from the stuff that you just studied prior to your break or that day away from the study session, it's working for you. And what that does is it helps you maintain knowledge over a longer period of time. So the stuff that you really deep seat and root into your brain. So that stuff that you really help seat into your brain over that period of time with sleeping and other good exercises and other activities that you can be doing, just living a better life in general. It's going to help develop new neuron pathways, and it's going to help you be able to pull that information out a little bit easier. So that's kind of what I'm going for here, and there's been a lot of research about it. Let's go ahead and Google active recall research. Active recall is a key study method that allows you to repeatedly test your brain to answer the questions or learn the topic. You got a lot of different stuff here. This one's from Windsor EDU, Osmosis.org, the most effective high yield learning technique. Goodnotes. I actually use them on my iPad. It's a fantastic app for note taking if you don't want to use paper all of the time. And then the other thing I use is spaced repetition. So active recall plus spaced repetition research. The spacing effect is the observation that repetitions spaced in time tend to produce stronger memories than repetitions massed closer together. So this is where you take like one subject and break it up into different days, or you study one portion of a subject for 3 hours, you take an hour break or a 10-minute break, and then you come back and you study it a little bit more, and then you start to do active recall on top of the spaced repetition. And I did this with cardiology. I've always been a cardio and respiratory nerd. If I were going to go into any form of medicine, whether becoming a doctor or PA or nurse or what have you, I would probably go into some sort of cardiology or intensive care specialty, because that stuff's really interesting to me, and I like mental challenges. It helps keep me interested. When things get monotonous, I kind of lose. Let's go ahead and get into this video. I know that's a really long introduction. I'm probably going to cut that down quite a bit. So what I want to do is I want to make drug drop downs for a lot of different things. And I'm going to start with, I don't like this table, so we are going to nix this. The good thing about having something like this is you don't just have to dump papers. So what we're going to do here instead is turn this into a toggle and just make it for COPD, and we're going to turn it, instead of just a regular toggle, we're going to do a toggle heading 3. So now we can turn this into a toggle. Hello, Oscar. Albuterol. Level, buterol, meta, proterenol. Ipratropium. That's going to be known as Atrovent. With albuterol and ipratropium, those two can be combined to create what's called a duoneb. And it works very, very well. So from what these toggles are going to be able to let me do is I can go through and just plug in like the MOA, what it attaches to, how does it work, contraindications to it, indications to it, the mechanism of action. Every drug that you'll ever give as a paramedic, a nurse, a doctor, there are always contraindications. One of the most common ones you'll ever see is if there's an allergy to it. Pretty straightforward. You don't want to give somebody a drug that they're going to react to in a negative way. Epinephrine, 1,000. Terbutaline. I'm gonna go ahead and start making that red because I have no idea what that is. And I color code based on my knowledge of it, so I'm gonna make all of these red. I'm aware of some of them, like albuterol and ipratropium and levobuterol and Epi 1000. But when it comes to actually knowing everything I can about these drugs, I ain't got a clue. I know contraindications and indications for some, especially when it comes to Epi. If somebody's already heavily tachycardic, it's not going to do them any better to send them into SVT. So you may not want to do that. And this is the same kind of Epi that you would get for anaphylaxis. So it's going to be 0.3 milligrams in the thigh or dorsal gluteal cheek, basically gluteus maximus. Those are the two most vascular areas in the body, and it's going to absorb real quickly. But if you accidentally stick yourself in the thumb, and I actually made a YouTube short about this, your thumb's going to get cold, it's going to turn white because epinephrine 1000 and Epi in general is a vasoconstrictor and bronchodilator. So what that means is it's going to constrict all those blood vessels in the area that's being affected most heavily and pull all of that fluid away. And at the same time, with the bronchodilation, which typically how you want to use it is if you're in anaphylaxis, you're having a severe asthma attack, or you're having severe respiratory distress having to do with your bronchial structures and your bronchial tree. So basically you're just starting to spasm up and you can't get control of it and you're sucking wind and you're not doing too hot. So it's going to suck that fluid away from the cell tissues. It's going to bring off that fluid and decrease the swelling just a little bit. And then at the same time, it is going to dilate those bronchioles, so it'll help open up and relax those smooth muscles in your airway. A lot of the same medications, we'll take a look here real quick. A A lot of the medications are the same for CPAP or for COPD and asthma. So albuterol, levobuterol, metaproterenol, ipratropium, epi, methylprednisone, and CPAP. You don't have terbutaline and you do have methylprednisone. You don't have prednisone for COPD. I don't know why. I'm actually gonna come up here, make a new page. I'm gonna drop these in. I don't know what a cyano-kit is, so I'm going to go back to questions. What is cyano-kit? Now, as I start to figure out more and more about each medication, let's go ahead and open up all of these. Let's say that I figure out what albuterol is specifically used for, and I know fairly well what it works to do. I don't know any other uses that I can think of off the top of my head, but I'll end up going back and making different pages to write down questions. So like airway, drug, questions. I'll drop that in. And I'll turn that into a page. And I'll drop that. And I'll drop that. And I'll just continue on down the list and organize. go through and color code everything here. This is going to be pretty easy. Red. Everything is red. Every single thing. So, and I am also going to break this up. So we're going to make another heading. Turn into toggle heading 3. I'm gonna take a break for a minute. This is a long video, guys. You know what? I'm gonna make a separate video on classifying these 4 things. So if you guys want to come back for that, I'll probably be uploaded later this week. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you have a great night.